Hello, cookie friends. Today we are going to talk about how to make a practice cookie from an STL that you already have. So, for example, I bought this whole group of STLs for a Mother's Day bouquet, and I wanted to, one, practice and see how they looked, and two, I wanted to do a little pre sale, and I wanted the cookies to show like they were cookies, but I didn't want to bake a whole batch of cookies so far in advance of Mother's Day. So, this is how I use Tinkercad to create practice cookies or faux cookies from known STLs.
Let's talk about the supplies you're going to need to make this happen. First, you're going to need an account on tinkercad.com. It's a free account. You're going to need the STL or the cookie cutter file. And finally, slicing software that you use to send content to your printer.
So, the very first thing we're going to do is either create an account or log into Tinkercad. Create a design, a new 3D design. And I have my work plane here. And if you've never been in a 3D workspace, it can be a little disorienting at first because you can work above and below the design. You can spin it and turn it around. So this is our work plane, and we're going to bring in the STL that we want to use to help us make that practice cookie. So the very first thing that we're going to do is go into the import button and choose a file. And here is my Mother's Day floral bouquet already, and I've got all of these different STLs. And I'm going to choose the bayberry leaf, and I'm going to choose upload. And I'm going to leave it in millimeters. For those of you who are in the US, you might be going, ooh, I want to change that to inches because I feel better there. Leave it in millimeters for the import so that it brings it in on the correct size. So I'm going to choose import. It's going to take a second or two. And here is our bayberry leaf. There's our cookie cutter. And now it's going to be really super simple to do this. The way that we're going to use Tinkercad is that we're going to use the STL to actually cut out a cookie from a block. So the first thing we're going to do is select our cookie cutter. And when we do that, it's going to show us our solid color. And what if we wanted to make this a whole? That might not make sense to you at the moment, but we're going to click whole. And now we're going to grab this box. We're just going to click on it and come over and place a box on our work plane. Now we're going to drag it by this little handle down the bottom right-hand corner. And think of this as your dough. And we're rolling out that dough to cover the entire leaf. Okay? So don't worry about how much overhang you have. Just make sure that it covers that cookie cutter entirely. You can kind of see as I'm using 2 fingers on my trackpad, and I am moving this around so that I can see, okay, it's all covered. The entire cookie cutter is covered. I can see a little bit above, which is good. So I'm cutting all the way through my dough, if you will, that red box. And now what I'm going to do is group these together. I'm going to select both my cookie cutter. I'm going to hold the shift key down and select the box as well. Well, that didn't work. Try that again. There, now I've got both. And I know I have both because when I come up to this menu bar, you can see that I can group these 2 shapes together. Group. Give that a second. And now what happens is that cookie cutter has now become negative space in our red block. And I haven't figured out how to get these two separated here in Tinkercad, but that's okay. I don't need to because I can do that in my slicing tool, which is where we're going to go next. Now, before we export this, you might want to change the name of your practice cookie because it gives us some crazy, silly name. So we're going to change the name to Leaf Practice Cookie. Now we can export, and we're going to save this as an STL, and it's going to download with our Leaf Practice Cookie name. Now that's going to go into our downloads folder, and there it is. Here is our Leaf Practice Cookie, and I am going to two-finger click on this. If you use a Mac, two-finger click or command click will give you a pop-up menu, and you can choose what application you want to open this in. So I'm going to choose Bamboo Studio, and here is what we just created. And right now it's still in one piece, but it's very simple to get those apart. So I have this selected, and I'm going to come up to split to objects, and you can do this in Prusa Slicer as well. I'm sure you can in Cura. So any slicer that you use should be able to split something into objects. Now it's still connected together, so it's grouped. So I'm going to click away from it and select the outside block. And now that I don't need that, and I can just delete it. Now this practice cookie is still pretty tall, and we don't need it to be that tall. So again, in Bamboo, I'm going to go up to the scale option. I'm going to make sure that uniform scale is unchecked. And I'm going to come over here to the Z height, which is how tall something is. And usually my cookies are about 9.5 millimeters tall. You don't have to make it the size of your cookie. You can do whatever size you want, but it just makes sense in my brain to make sure that I make that as tall as my cookie. So there it is, and I'm ready to print. And really, you can print this at a pretty fast speed. So when you come over to what slicer preset you want, you can go to a pretty good, like a draft, or just because you don't really care how pretty it looks. So this is going to do a really nice chunky layer height and be able to print this a lot faster. I hope this was helpful. Give me feedback and let me know if you've made your own practice cookies.